Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy, and here in today's video we are going to be going over my buyer's guide for a Ford Tremor. I actually had a bunch of people say that I forgot to talk about this in the Ford F-250 and F-350 buyer's guide. I didn't. I just wanted to make a standalone video for the Tremor just because it's a new specialty truck and I like making standalone videos on the off-road trucks because they're just cool. Regardless of that, in today's video I'm first going to be talking about what the Tremor actually is as a package, kind of a lot of the stuff that is associated with the Tremor. Then I'm going to get into the different engine, transmission options with the Tremor. Then we'll get into the different packages with the Tremor in terms of the interior packages. And then finally, we'll talk about reliability and then cost on the Tremor. So with that all being said, let's get right into the video. Now let's actually talk about some of the stuff that is associated with the Tremor, what really makes it a Tremor. Now the Tremor is Ford's new off-road package for the F-250 and the F-350 if you've never heard of it. And it's supposed to compete against the Power Wagon, but there are some things that make it so it doesn't 100% compete with the Power Wagon, and I'll explain those in this section. Now, first off, the coolest thing about the Tremor is the fact that you can get it with a diesel engine. You can't get that in the Power Wagon. We'll talk more about the diesel engine itself later in the video, but that's definitely the first really cool part. The other cool part is the truck has a lift from the factory. I believe it's about 1.5 inches in the front and 2 inches in the back, which again, it's just gonna help with ground clearance. It does come with 35s from the factory. Now, a lot of people have said that it'd be better with 37s. I agree. But at least we get 35s from the factory. Now the other really cool thing in it is some off-road specs. So it can wade through 33 inches of water, which I think is pretty cool. And then in terms of another cool feature that it has, like what the Power Wagon has, is it has a 12,000 pound winch that you can get as an option from the factory, which all the Power Wagons have those standard, but it's cool that you can at least get it as an option. Now it does come with a locking differential, which is great off-road tech. However, the one thing that the Power Wagon has that the Ford Tremor does not is the sway bar disconnect. Ford Tremor doesn't have that, Power Wagon does, so that is where the Power Wagon kind of steps ahead a little bit, but they are both great off-road trucks. And now let's get into the engine options. Let's talk about the engines that come with the Tremor. Now you get two different engine options. You get a 6.7 liter Power Stroke or the 7.3 liter gas V8, also known as the Godzilla V8, which I think is kind of funny because they also call it the GTR Godzilla. Anyways, regardless of that, pretty cool that you get two different engine options. The Power Wagon only gets a 6.4 Hemi. The other cool thing about the Tremor is the towing capacity on it. Now the towing capacity is about 15,000 pounds with either of those engines, and that's a bumper pull. So the truck's actually pretty practical from a towing standpoint, whereas the Power Wagon only tows about 10,000 pounds. So yeah, it's just awesome that you can get that good of a towing capacity from an off-road truck. Now the next thing is the power outputs on both those engines. So the 6.7 Power Stroke with the 10-speed automatic has 475 horsepower and then 1,050 foot-pounds of torque, which it's a monster. You guys have seen me drive it so many times. It's crazy how fast that engine is. It has so much power and torque. And then that 7.3 is 430 horsepower and then 475 foot-pounds of torque. Now, in terms of which engine you should choose, it depends on what you want to do. Now, even though their towing capacities are exactly the same, the diesel is going to tow that load a lot easier just because it has so much more torque. So getting off the line is going to be a lot easier. It has more horsepower, so you're going to be able to accelerate a little bit quicker. And again, the towing capacities are the same, but the trucks are just going to tow way differently. The diesel, you're going to be kind of going a little bit up in the RPMs, but not that much. The engine's not going to be struggling all that much. Whereas with the gas engine, you're going to be revving it out more. It's going to be hurting well, not hurting, but you're going to be using more of the engine, if that makes sense. So if you want like an easier towing experience and you're going to be towing heavier loads, definitely get the diesel. And we'll talk about reliability later on in the video, but if you just want a quick, simple answer, I am assuming the 7.3 is going to be a little bit more reliable than the Power Stroke, even though it's just recently been out. The Power Stroke has had its issues, and typically gas engines are usually a little bit less money to basically keep up and running compared to their diesel counterparts, basically. So there are the engine options for you with the Ford Tremor. Now let's talk about the different trim packages with the Tremor. And before we get into the trim packages, I want to just mention the cab configuration with the Tremor. You can only get it in one cab configuration. That is a crew cab with the short bed. And it makes sense that they want to do the short bed because it's an off-road truck. And again, it makes sense that they're doing the crew cab because that is the most common configuration for the F250 and F350 in terms of volume number for sales. So yeah, it just makes sense they're gonna do their specialty truck only in those configurations. A single cab short bed would obviously be better off-road, but how many they would actually sell? Not that many. So crew cab, short bed. And on top of that, let's obviously get into the different trim packages. Your first trim package is the XLT. Now this is your entry-level trim package with the Tremor. And in terms of what it actually comes with, this is like your upgraded cloth interior for the F-Series lineup. And so you can get most of the interior features on the XLT. Like you can get the bigger touchscreen, you can get some luxury amenities like heated seats, remote start, all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't come with the leather interior. And so that's kind of where the XLT stands. Again, entry-level Tremor, but kind of like middle of the line for the Ford F-Series in terms of the interior package. Now the next one is the Lariat package, and this is the package that I actually reviewed when I did review a Tremor, was the Lariat package. Now this is your entry-level leather interior with the Tremor and just with the Ford F-Series in general. So you get stuff like heated, cooled seats, nicer infotainment system. You can get a little bit more equipment with the truck. You get stuff like power seats and just a nicer interior in general with some leather on the dash, some nicer trim on the door. So just everything from the interior perspective will be a little bit nicer. And so if you just want your best like bang for your buck with features on the Tremor, the Lariat package is the one to go for, just because you do get all the luxury amenities, but you're not paying a crazy premium like the next two packages. Now the next one is the King Ranch, and this is Ford's Western themed truck, which I have never seen a King Ranch Tremor yet. I've seen an XLT, I've seen a Lariat, and I have seen a Platinum, but I have not seen a King Ranch, which I think that'd actually be pretty interesting, because off-road truck that's supposed to be like all blacked out and sporty, but then cowboy interior. So pretty interesting. But regardless of that, you do get, again, nicer leather seats than what the Lariat has. You still get all the same luxury equipment like the heated, ventilated seats, heated steering wheel, bigger touchscreen, nicer leather on the dash, wood trim, all that kind of stuff. But again, towards a Western theme. So that's really what the King Ranch Tremor is all about. And then finally, you have the Platinum Tremor, which again is kind of like your fully loaded luxury with the nicest interior you can get on the Tremor. So nicer leather seats, nice leather on the dash, nice trim on the doors. Again, you get the bigger infotainment system as standard, power seats, all that kind of stuff. And the biggest thing is the Platinum just gives you all the nicer stuff than what the Lariat has in terms of interior materials, but it doesn't have the Western theme. You can have it so that it's more of like a sporty theme, because you could get it with a black interior if you would like. Now, sadly, they don't offer the limited Tremor. I think that would be pretty cool to have a limited Tremor, but I can understand why they won't do it, because I imagine most people getting the Tremor will probably either get an XLT or a Lariat. They'll probably sell a few King Ranches, and they probably sell a little bit more Platinums than they do King Ranches, but I imagine most buyers will opt in for the XLT or the Lariat, so that's why they don't offer the limited, is they would either not sell any or they'd sell so few that it just wouldn't make sense for them to actually build it. Let's get into common issues with the Tremor now in this section, and some of the stuff that I'm going to be saying is going to apply to the Tremor just based on what happens to other F-Series trucks. The Tremor hasn't been out long enough for us to get an exact reliability track record on that specific model, but it has a lot of the same underpinnings as all of the other heavy duties. So from like a suspension standpoint, all that kind of stuff, it should be just as solid. Maybe the fact that it's lifted from the factory could cause minor issues in the future, but I honestly doubt it. The biggest things with the F-Series is that 6.7 liter Power Stroke has had quite a few issues just from its existence. Now, again, it's way more reliable than the 6.4, way more reliable than the 6.0, but everything is more reliable than the 6.0. And so just understand, if you do get the 6.7, that your maintenance costs over the long term are going to be most likely more expensive than the 7.3 gas engine. And it's just because diesels are more expensive to maintain in general, but also that engine hasn't had all of its kinks worked out. And the problem is, Ford just keeps putting more and more and more power into that engine, and the more power they put into it, obviously there's a higher chance of something breaking. I mean, if any of you have ever done any sort of build on a car, every time you put more power to it, something else breaks, right? Is it the driveline? Is it this or that? And it's not going to happen on the truck, but they are pushing that engine to what I would consider its limits. And especially with all of the emissions restrictions that are on those trucks nowadays, it's just hard to make a super solid, reliable diesel with all of that taken into consideration. So if you really need the diesel, get it, but understand it's going to be more expensive long-term because of the emission system and just because of how much power they're pushing through that engine now. Now the 10-speed transmission, again, it hasn't been out long enough for me to really be able to find anything on it, and so I can't tell you one way or the other on that. Now the 7.3, again, like I said, it hasn't been out for long enough for it to have like an official track record for reliability, but I imagine it's going to do relatively well. Ford's larger displacement V8s and V10s have done okay in the past. The V10s have had some issues, but the V8s have seemed to do pretty well. Like their 6.2 seems to be a pretty solid engine, so I think the 7.3 will do a pretty good job. And a benefit of that engine is it's lighter than the 6.7, so when you are going on the off-road, it could make it a little bit easier in certain circumstances just because the actual truck itself will be just a little bit lighter. But again, when you're already dealing with like a 7,000-pound truck, any kind of weight loss doesn't really matter all that much. Now let's get into pricing with the Tremor. So the Tremor has to be equipped, again, with a crew cab, short bed, 4x4 truck. So the base model prices for any of the trim packages obviously have to already start up at that baseline before you add the Tremor package. So it's going to be pretty expensive. Now the package itself is $39.75, so about $4,000 to add the Tremor package to the truck, which, I mean, for the fact that you're getting pretty good tires, right, and you're getting a little bit of a lift, you're getting custom aesthetics and a locker, I mean, it is a little bit expensive for what it is. However, I mean, it's kind of in that little bit of a gray area. Like, it's such a cool truck that, yeah, you are gonna have to pay a little bit of a premium for it, but I think that it's just a little bit overpriced for the package itself. But yeah, Ford can do what they want, right? Now the XLT Tremor starts at $53,390, and yeah, I mean, it's expensive. And obviously that diesel engine is another 10 grand. So if you want to get an XLT Tremor with a diesel engine, you're already over $60,000 for the truck. And again, that's because you have to get 4x4, you have to get a crew cab, and so everything kind of adds onto the cost. The crazy part is where the Platinum starts at, and that is $87,000 for a Platinum Tremor. Like, that is ridiculous. And well, I mean, that is with the diesel engine. If you take away the diesel, then you're $77,000, but $87,000 starting price. So then if you did a Platinum F350, added all the options, you might be able to break six figures with a Tremor. So it's not exactly the most cost-effective truck on the planet, but it does look really cool. And I bet I'm going to see a million people in the comment section go, well, I can buy this truck in 6 years for 50, or no, they'll probably be like for 25% of what it costs brand new. And yeah, you could, but it'll also probably be just completely destroyed if someone well, it depends if someone off-roads it or not, or what they do it. But I imagine most people that buy the Tremor will probably never take it off-road, sadly. That is going to sum up things for my buyer's guide on the new 2020 Ford Tremor. As always, if you're stopping for the first time, I would really appreciate if you guys would subscribe. And again, I want you guys to put down in the comment section what vehicle or truck or whatever you want me to do next for this buyer's guide series, and I'll be more than happy to do a full guide on it. That all being said, see all of you in that next video.